Hi, I'm Sergio Paez, storyboard artist and founder of StoryboardArt, the #1 online resource for storyboards and visual storytelling, where you train with other storyboard professionals so you can make a living with your art. Have you ever wondered why you're not getting traction in your art career even after 4 years of art school? After 25 years as a professional storyboard artist and now director, and mentoring students for over 15 years so they can have a successful art career, I've noticed 5 key things that people overlook on their career path. These are things I wish somebody told me coming out of school. I did a talk recently to university students where I lay out 5 essential things for new grads. These are things that I've shown my students and I want to show you so you too can have a successful art career. Okay, 5 essential things that I think you need as new graduates. So depending on where you are in your education, you might be graduating soon, or you're going to eventually graduate, right? You're going to get out there and be in the workplace. And so this is me. I've worked on a number of features, television shows, freelance work. I've even done like tech stuff and apps. It's always been in story development and visual development and kind of visual design. So I also wrote a book about storyboarding, which people seem to get a lot out of. So that's kind of fun to get the feedback. And then I've been a mentor at storyboardart.org. We have a mentorship program teaching people how to do visual storytelling and how to get into the workplace as a storyboard artist. So here's my first tip, okay? And this is where I kind of just want to give you just a general idea of what you're getting into, okay? This is a very difficult thing to do, to get into the entertainment industry, to become an artist. And what you need to realize that I didn't know when I was getting out there was after college, and I worked my ass off when I was in school. I was like really dedicated. I loved what I was doing. I loved learning about art because that was all I wanted to do. The film industry, entertainment, everything I could soak up. And what I found out is that it's just the beginning of the journey. I didn't realize this. And the reason I want to bring this up first, because you put this into perspective, okay? You're going to do what? 3 to 4 years. Some people do graduate work at the school level. And after that, you think like, all right, I'm awesome. Like I know what I'm doing. And then when you get into the workplace, you find out how much more you need to do. And the way to think about this, if you're going to have a career that's going to span 30 years or more, right? Let's hope that we get there, that you're just at the beginning. Okay, so this is the tip of the iceberg of what you're doing, all that hard work and all that effort that you're learning right now. You got to think of this as a marathon. It's a marathon and not a sprint. So you got to pace yourself as you're going through there. And that's where you want to think of this as a long-term thing. So you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to have to ride the economy, and you have to ride different trends in the industry. And so that's where I want you to think about this. Okay, this is just the beginning of what's going on here. Okay. The other one is, well, school was great, but now the learning begins. That's kind of the second part of what I wanted to get at with this, is that you are a student for life when it comes to the entertainment industry, when it comes to art, okay, as an artist. And this is where I didn't have this concept right. So when school was over, I thought, okay, I've got all my learning in. But no, actually what you really need to think about is that you have to learn so much more after you graduate, and that learning continues forever, right? So until you die. And this is where I think you want to keep that in your mind, because it's a lifestyle choice to be in there. You should have that passion and have this, want to take this stuff through to the whole way, okay? Now, let me go to the next tip here. This is something I really appreciate now, and I'm going to give you this tip here. So pay attention. You may not understand this right now, because I certainly didn't understand this when I was in school. You're going to have to master time management. Okay. What that means is right now, especially when I was coming up, I didn't have a family. I didn't have very many responsibilities. Like I had a bunch of bills to pay and stuff, but like after that, I was pretty much free. Like I would go out on the weekends and I would, hang out with my friends, and I'd be active doing art stuff, right? But I didn't realize how much I was wasting my time and not actually picking a focus and being able to expand. So we talked a little about this last time. What you do as an artist in the entertainment industry, I liken this a lot to being a professional athlete, okay? So what a professional athlete does, they have a singular focus on the goal that they want to do, and everything in their time, everything in their calendar is designed around that singular focus. Now you might say, well, geez, that sounds really like intense. Like, do I really want to get in that? If you want to be successful at this, you have to learn these things, okay? So I want to be this first seed that's going to implant that in your head, that you hear this stuff, because one day you're going to remember I said this. If you're listening now and you say, oh man, this guy, Sergio, he talked about time management. Because when you stack things, like you have more responsibilities, you got more bills to pay, you got a family, you have a relationship, you have, maybe you're traveling, or the job requirements start piling up. You have to know how to handle your schedule and eliminate the stuff that is not pushing you forward. So I'm really adamant about this stuff, about anything that's not pushing you forward is really holding you back. So is that like, 10, 20 hours of gaming that you're doing every week? Is that really helping you? Is it, maybe it's research, okay? But like, there's a certain point where you're gonna have to figure out what are the things that you want to eliminate. And the social media and the texting and whatever it is you're doing. Like I messed around for dumb things for the longest time, and I didn't get this. And this is where I really want you guys to know about this. Here's another thing that I'll tell you that you may not know now. The most successful people I've met wake up before 5 a.m. The most successful people that I have met wake up early, okay? I am telling you that with emphasis, so that your late nights of going to bed at 2 and 3 a.m. and screwing around watching Netflix or whatever it is, you're gonna have to change that. And I highly recommend you do it. Why? Because in the workplace, when you actually get this stuff, call times on a film set are at 4:35 a.m. Okay, so you're gonna have to be up early, earlier than that to actually get on the set, right? And you have to be ready. You have to be able to execute that stuff. So I used to be a night owl and kind of produce at night because my time was like open. Like I didn't have all these other responsibilities. This you need to know about, and there are resources there, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But think about what you're spending your time on now, and is that serving you for the future? Okay. Number 4, learn the business side of art. Okay, and this one is somewhat difficult to understand because you have to find resources in order to do that, and we can talk about that. But you got to know about contracts. You have to know about the trends in the industry, and you have to know what kinds of things you should learn about that are going to keep you afloat in a career sense long term. So you might want to learn about marketing and branding, and these are things that may not fit within your field of study. And for me, that was a big opening because I didn't know about marketing. I didn't care about finances. I didn't know any about that stuff. But when I needed to learn it, I had to like take time out and stop the art stuff and learn about money and finances and spreadsheets and things like that are part of the business that we do. And so this is how you get successful at it. And actually, I find that stuff very interesting now that I get this concept. So you can't just be a one-trick pony here. You have to learn about the other things because you want to be successful, right? Hopefully you're not doing this. If you're doing this as a hobby, okay, great, but you're probably spending a lot of money at your current university doing that stuff. But this is where I say, like, think of this as you're a professional athlete. If you really want to be successful and you want to go to the big leagues and you want to do something really significant, then you got to learn about all these things, okay? And then number 5, find a mentor. I didn't understand this concept either when I was coming up. And this kind of fell into my lap in a wonderful way because I got into a studio environment where there were other mentors there. There were veteran artists and directors that would kind of take me on and they would teach you stuff. Now, it wasn't because they like sat down, there was like this formal structure. Sometimes there is that, which is great. I've worked at like Pixar, for example, and they had a university program that is very formal, and you go through that and you get a mentor and you train with somebody else who's going to teach you the ropes, essentially. Sometimes it's rare that happens. I had this kind of happen to me in an organic way where my supervisors essentially became my mentors, and I was paying really good attention to what they said. I took detailed notes of everything that they said because I don't want to make the same mistake twice, and I want to learn this stuff as fast as possible because I was really into the things that I was doing, right? Like, for example, like learning my perspective and learning how to do storyboards and shot choices and things like that. I went home and I studied. Like I did some homework after this stuff because the mentor told me, essentially my supervisor told me, hey, you need to learn about this stuff. There's a good book that you should read. Check out this resource. And I would do it because I really, well, one, I valued my job. I didn't want to get fired, right? And then the other one is that they were training me, and I thought that was super valuable. I was really happy. And then now that I've kind of gone into the role of being a supervisor, I actually really enjoy training the younger generation of artists that come out. And I've seen this many times. If you find a mentor, you're able to grow that much faster. This is a productivity thing, and this is like a life hack. So we can talk a little bit about how to do these kinds of things, but you might seek somebody out formally, or like I said, in the job environment, latch on to somebody who might have more experience than you, and you got to be humble. You got to be humility aside. You want to soak in as much knowledge as you can because they're going to give it to you, right? If you imagine you get the chance to be an intern to I don't know, Martin Scorsese or something like that. Don't you think somebody like that would have all this insight and just life experience to teach you stuff that you would never have access to? That's the kind of thing that you want to think about. And this to me has been very valuable. And there's different stages of learning and mentorship that you can have. You'd have one, let's say, as an entry level, but even as you get more senior and you get more skills, you're going to want to kind of build up your repertoire of stuff with more skilled and knowledgeable mentors. So think about that as you scale up into what you're doing with your stuff.
So what do you think of the mass layoffs that companies are doing? Like, do you think hiring might shoot back up again? Because it seems like companies want to use AI a lot more and they're like firing in droves.
The reason you get fired, or the reason a company will most likely lay you off, is because you are not a key asset to whatever production you're working on. So the truth is, you need to become a key asset to whatever the production is, right? So if you're just a cog in the wheel and you give no value to the company, and you're like one of many multiple artists, yeah, you're going to be on the chopping block for most of it. Now, there are places like have shut down completely. Like I wasn't there, but I've seen many teammates and coworkers and stuff. Like when Blue Sky shut down, Disney bought them and they cut the studio. Like I was at a game studio that got bought out, and then they laid off a bunch of people because they're cutting expenses. You might just be in the pile of bad luck at that point, but so it's going to happen. So then this is a fact of life. This is a fact of the career, and I know like accountants and people like that who are not art related that also have this happening to them. So the way that I defend myself from this, I try as much as I can to have more skills and to be able to offer more value as a service provider, which is the way I think of myself and who we are in the industry, so that you are one of the last people that they think about removing from the list. This is one of the reasons I also argue about becoming a storyboard artist and you're in the story department, because the directors, the writers, and the story team are essential to creating the blueprint for the production. You can still get laid off. I mean, don't get me wrong. But that's one of the tips I get. The other one about AI, I mean, that's another fact of life. We had a brief discussion about this last time with another class, but it's another tool that's coming in there, and companies in general are going to look to reduce costs. So what can you do that's actually going to make you stand out for that's going to for AI? Like for example, the stuff that I do, storyboard artists are very much like up in arms because of the whole AI revolution. Now, my argument to this is that I don't consider myself an image creator. That's what AI can do. It can probably create a better image than I can, and way faster, right? Because it's compiling all the information there and creates a kick-ass image. But I'm a problem solver, and I create story solutions. I don't create story images. Now, I use the images that I create as tools to solve those story problems. But I haven't seen the studios cut these essential thinking activities um, out yet. If you are on the external side, so think of this like if you remember, well, I love like 2D animation and stuff. If you're an ink and painter, if you know what that is, it's like they used to paint these cells by hand and they get photographed under a camera, right? Then the digital revolution came in. Those guys got cut because their job was non-essential, right? Horse and buggy, right? Who's gonna like choose a horse and buggy over a car nowadays, right? Those guys got cut. So it's like there's also just like industry trends. I think you need skills to keep yourself employable. And so what can you do to make yourself more valuable? Learn as much as you can and become a badass in what you do. And that way you'll probably be least likely to get cut and stay employed.
I wanted to know if you had any advice or like recollection from personal experiences as to like what necessarily like would work better for like initial like getting into the industry, like specific jobs or different assets, and also like how long would you say that it took for you to get settled in the industry or like feel that you actually had like a foothold in it?
Great question. So, well, let me kick one back to you. So, what discipline are you looking to get into? What kinds of things do you want to be doing in the marketplace?
Currently I do both animation and illustration in terms of that sort of stuff, and I have been looking into like concept artistry and storyboarding and that sort of thing.
Okay, first recommendation, I would pick storyboarding,
Okay.
just because I'm biased. No, I'm joking. But like, uh, there's reasons why you want to pick. You could do all of that stuff. My recommendation is that you pick one. You're gonna focus. Nobody's ever gonna ask you to do storyboards, illustration, animation, all on the same gig. It's very, very rare that you'd be a generalist like that. Even in a small studio, you'd probably be doing more of one versus another. So if you can do concept art and visual development, it's very different from storyboards. It actually is, even though people think it's the same thing or it's related. Animation, it's its own very specific skill set. You have to become an actor with the tool that you're using. So you got to move the puppet or move the 3D object or move the drawing that you're going to do as an animator or stop motion, whatever you're doing, right? So um, those skills are very unique, and I would recommend you pick the one that you most like doing and do that. So that's kind of my advice there. Now the other one that you mentioned of it was like when did I actually feel settled in the when I started my career. So I'll just give you a brief run back, and this relates to kind of the bullet points that I talked about earlier. So I went through 4 years of college. I went to art school. Like I said, I worked my ass off at school to learn the skills because I was just very insecure and I didn't think I could do it. And it's very scary to do that kind of stuff. Um, and so yeah, I feel you guys if you feel the same way and you have a similar story. And so I was able to build up a portfolio during those 4 years of art school, and then I had a body of work to show, and it was very schoolwork and drawings and illustrations and stuff like that. It wasn't all that targeted, but it was enough to get me an entry level job at a local animation studio in San Francisco where I went to school. And there I met a couple people. I got a little more training, and I was really excited. I was making like 14 bucks an hour, I remember, and I was like, yes, I finally got paid to do work, right? I was so excited. But I got laid off from that job. That it was just a short-term gig, and then I ended up doing other work. So I was able to stay employed. Like I hustled enough to get like illustration work and freelance work, and I'd put resumes all over the place and portfolios, and I was applying to a bunch of places. But I didn't until I landed like a feature job. I got an entry level job on a feature. I worked at a game studio for a while, and then after that, I really wanted to get into feature. And one time, I got offered to be an intern at Pixar, and I turned it down because the timing wasn't right, and I couldn't say yes. And I still kick myself for that. That was like when I was really early. I ended up going to Pixar later on, but that first internship I remember was like, oh damn, I wonder what would happen if I had taken it. At any rate, I hustled enough, and I landed a feature job about 3 to 5 years into my early career, and that's what, like I said, when the learning really took off. I thought I knew, I thought I had enough foundation to complete the gig, But there I was working with very highly skilled professionals that had a lot of experience. There was ex-Disney guys. There was like, very skilled animators. And that's where I really cut my teeth and I learned my trade about storyboarding. I thought I knew what to do about storyboarding. And then I got a story supervisor sit down with me and they're like, all right, you got to do this, change this, move that. This is how you do a composition. Go back, do this again, and turn it in. I was just like, oh, damn. And I had to survive. Well, I felt, I was very excited to do it. And I was also scared to lose the job or whatever. But I learned a ton from those people, and they were very supportive. So that was great. That's the other thing you kind of figure out as you're working. Nobody wants you to fail. So when you get hired, there is a support mechanism to help you move forward, even though it can be somewhat scary if you don't know about that. And so probably about 5 or 6 years in, when I got more practice and I got more reps, that's when I felt like, oh, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. And then I started applying to more jobs with more confidence, and I had a body of work to show. So it takes that long to actually get started. And then about 10 years in, from when I graduated school, that's when I felt like, all right, I had enough confidence to do this on my own. At that point, I landed the job at Pixar, and I landed the next job at Lucasfilm. And I was really able to show off some of my storytelling style, and I felt like I was coming into my own. I still got a lot to learn, right? So this is where humility comes in there too. But really, that I hope that doesn't scare you guys, but it's like 5 to 10 years in when you're gonna catch your stride, because you need to learn that stuff. You need to practice a lot.
I don't know. I was just wondering what other companies you work for, or mainly just the small ones, because I'm aware that nobody just starts out working at Pixar unless they somehow get really lucky.
Yeah, I'll tell you my list, and I'll tell you another fun anecdote about that. So I started out working at, let's see if I remember. It's like I'm dating myself with all this stuff, but okay. So I started out working at WildBrain, which was a local animation studio in San Francisco. They still exist. They now got bought out and whatever, and they moved to LA. They're still producing stuff. So then after that, I worked at a product design company called The Happy Company. I don't think they're around anymore, but I was doing children's book illustration and product illustrations for them. That was a brief gig, and then I did a bunch of freelance work in between. Then I worked at the Spa Studios in Spain, and that was the first feature that I worked on. That was back in 2002, I believe. It's a while now. And then after that, I got hired at Sammy Studios in San Diego, which later became Sega, and then it became High Moon Studios. So then they got bought out and moved around there. After that, I came back to the Bay Area and I landed a gig at Pixar, and that was when they were doing Ratatouille, and I was working with the tools department to help board out how they were going to do the MEMV system, which is at the time, it was like their 3D system of how to integrate everything. And then after that, I got the job at Lucasfilm working on Clone Wars, and that was really great. That was when they were first starting out with Dave and George Lucas, and then I was there for a number of years. And then I went off to do freelance work, and that's where I started doing some more live action feature work. I worked on the Little Boy project. I worked at a couple short films for Metanoia Studios that was one of the producers for those things, and then after that I went back to Lucasfilm. I worked on Rebels and the Resistance TV show, and then in between all this, I started with another partner, StoryboardArt.org, which is the visual storytelling platform. So that's kind of a little bit of my thing, and I'm doing freelance right now, and I'm doing a little more on the production side of things and doing development work at the moment. You mentioned too that nobody really starts out in the hitting a big job at Pixar. Some people do, they get an internship and they're able to work their way up to that. And I had a fun professor from Pixar actually who told me something that I thought was really funny. He was like, he came from the 2D animation world, and he looked at us, and this was all in a classroom when I was in the university. He's like, all of you guys are going to work on shit in your lifetime. And he said that with such emphasis. I was just like, oh, okay. And what he meant was that you're gonna cut your teeth on something that's not going to be that great, but it's a learning experience, and yeah, you got to build up to it. And then you eventually land, once you have enough experience, maybe you land that job that you were really hoping for. at a bigger studio or working with more experienced people. But you don't just magically start out doing that. You have to build up your skills in order to get to those places.
Thanks. I also have one more question. Is that have you ever had like to do multiple projects at the same time? If you did, were they like vastly different approaches to how you would do them?
Yes, in the workplace, most of the time I was doing one specific task. There are times, especially when I got into like supervising and stuff, you're doing management and you're doing the actual task, like you're boarding out a scene or you're doing kind of development work on a particular episode or project. But I can also tell you, there was a time when I was working at Lucasfilm and doing freelance at the same time. So I'd do my work shift, and then at night I'd come home and I'd do like freelance work. I'd get some extra like moonlighting work on the side, and just like my whole day was booked. I enjoyed that stuff. It's like, it wasn't for every time, because like I said, that was like my night owl days when I'd work till like 2 a.m. and stuff. So it wasn't the most productive, but what I recommend, to be honest, is you focus on one thing. So if you're distracted doing like your own side projects and like, if you get hired doing freelance work or something like that, I really recommend you pick one, because it's super difficult to put all of your heart and effort and quality of attention and work into multiple things. It's hard enough to do it on one thing. So this is where your absolute focus needs to be doing like that. I have an animator buddy who worked at Pixar, and I know what he's talking about when he said this. And I remember having a conversation, and he's like, yeah, when I animate a scene, I can't just go home and turn my brain off. Like, I'm thinking about all of the things I need to be doing the next day. He was like thinking of the shot that he had to do in the scene, because it's not just you clock in and clock out. You should always be thinking of the solution. So this is where it becomes a lifestyle choice about what we do here. Partly because we want to do it, right? You should want to do it. If you're clocking in and clocking out on something, you may not be putting in your 100% effort. So that's another like kind of nod to like the time management and your focus. You want to have 100%, put your heart into something, give it your all. And if you do that, the results will show, and you'll learn so much faster by doing that. So I don't recommend you get scattered. I've done that stuff before, and it's really hard.
Hi, I'm Tamia, and I was wondering about like your time working with Pixar, and for someone like with very beginner's skill set, at what stage would you say you need to land like an internship?
I'll also ask you the same question as before. What discipline are you looking to get into?
So I am interested in like multiple things like 3D and animation and drawing, and I know I need to stick to one, but I'd say probably like 3D modeling.
3D modeling. Okay. Yeah, I would. This is news for everybody. Pick one. You might be learning multiple things right now, and that's great. Actually, this is why you go to school and learn stuff. So get your hands dirty and like experiment with multiple things and find out which one you like the most. You'll probably naturally figure out which one you're best at anyway. Like the reason I ended up in story development was because I think naturally that was my inclination anyway. I started out as a 2D animator, but I like the story aspect much more, and I love the drawing part, so then I stuck to that. So if you want to do like 3D modeling, obviously you have to put a portfolio together. You have to put like a series of like a show reel and demonstrations that you can actually do the work, and then start applying as much as you can to everywhere. And yeah, you can get in to the studios. You'd be surprised that like when these internships come up, like a lot of people just don't apply. But if you do, and the worst thing that can happen is you don't get a reply back, you get rejected. Okay, no big deal. Go apply somewhere else, right? But what happens if you actually get an interview? That's huge. And so that's where, just from personal experience, I got offered an internship at Pixar when I was like just like maybe a year or two out of school, and I was traveling at the time and I couldn't accept it. So I was like, that was my excuse. And I probably should have been thinking about it now. I should have like canceled everything I was doing and gone and taken that opportunity, because it could have led to something else. At the very least, I would have learned something. So yes, you can do it. You have to research what you need to put together and show in order to apply to these internships for the specific discipline that you're interested in applying for. It's not a good idea to put a general portfolio together and say, hey, I'm talented. Here, look at my stuff. I can help you guys at a company. Most of the time, you'll get into the rejection pile. You want to be very specific about what you're applying for, and tailor all of your work to that, and so that you'll have better chances of actually getting selected. And once you get hired, that's your opportunity also, and that's like to my earlier point, that's when the learning actually starts. And then you should think of this like you're going to school again, and you're going to learn. Now you're at film school, or you're at animation school, whatever it is. Like, but you're now at the master's degree level. Okay, just to give you an analogy, right? To me, really, it doesn't matter what degree you have. It's just you're going to learn skills that are going to get you into the marketplace.
Also, I just want to know, how was your time working in Pixar?
Oh, it was awesome. That place is great. So, there's ups and downs. I know that was a long time ago for me, at least. That was back in 2006, I believe. And I was only there for a brief while. And, that was when they were switching out the director, and Brad Bird came on for Ratatouille. And, it was amazing. The people there are top notch. I mean, these are the industry's best talent work at these studios. Okay, so you have the opportunity to learn from them. That is a huge thing to consider if you're going to go there. To me, it's not about the money, even though I got paid. It's more about the experience that you have there. And the environment that's there is so creative, so exciting. There's movie premieres, and they would show screenings of films on their theater. So it's a wonderful experience to be at these high-level studios. So that's why I say if you want to get to the big leagues, which I consider that some of the big leagues, you're going to have to do what it takes to learn the skills and to catch up. It's a very high-octane environment to be working in these production environments, because they're demanding. The standards of quality are extremely high. Like I said, if you're working with a top talent, I was not the top talent. So then, how do I keep up? That was mainly what I got to do. And so you got to train, you got to work, you got to study and learn. And it's thrilling when you get the opportunity that somebody unlocks a piece of knowledge. And I just soaked that up and loved it. You could walk the halls and see all the inspiring things there. So it's a great experience to be at these studios.
Hello. So questions that I have is, for time management, do you have any advice for people that have the ADHD, as it can be troubling to come up with time management? And when it comes to the industry, I've also heard a lot of you should specialize in one thing. That's not something I really want to do, because I'm also interested in so many different facets. To solve that problem, would it be best to apply for one position for a company, kind of specialize in that for that job, and then if you're looking for other jobs, you can choose a different position to go for?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. So I'll get to the ADHD question in a second. So I think I have some of that too, by the way. But somebody said this advice I thought was pretty good. You can do everything that you want, but you just can't do everything at the same time. Okay, so you're gonna have to pick one for now, which is kind of what you were alluding to. So if you like 3D modeling today, and you also like illustrations, and you also like animation or whatever, there could be multiple modeling, animation, filmmaking, composition, whatever, layout, gaming, whatever it is that you're into. Okay, you might be into 3 or 4 of those things. Great. Well, you're gonna have to pick one to do now, and then target that. Build a portfolio, build a series of samples for that one thing. Then do that one thing, and then when you get bored of it or you want to jump to something else, put a series of samples for the next thing and put that together. Most of the time people jump to related tasks. So if you're doing concept art and you might be doing backgrounds at a certain company, then you might switch off to doing characters at a different place, but it's all like just visual development related. So the art skills are jump from one thing to another. If you're doing 3D modeling and all of a sudden you're doing storyboards, those are really very different skill sets that you need to build up. So if they're far removed from that, that's hard. If you eventually want to work up into becoming a director, well, then there are multiple skill sets that you need to have, but the real kind of top level skill set is being able to manage and have a really good eye for timing, story, story structure and development. So there's different skill sets that you need to build up in order to navigate those jobs. So I think one way to look at this is figure out what you enjoy doing and that you wouldn't mind doing for a certain period of time. And then when that time is up or you decide you want to do something else, then you do the necessary steps to jump on to the next thing. I don't recommend that you do everything and you're going to put it into a portfolio. Those go to the rejection pile because they don't know where to put you. They don't know what to do with you. If you can do modeling and illustration, most of the time you're never going to be able to do that at a high level on all of those things. I've never seen it that you are a top-notch illustrator and also a top-notch modeler. You're going to be one or the other, right? Or you can fill in the blank for any of those things and mix and match. So pick one, target that, and then push that forward as your main thing for a while, and then switch over to something else. Now, as far as the attention deficit stuff, I've worked with a couple of artists who have this, and they say they struggle with this issue. I personally, don't. I have what I would consider OCD. That's different. So I really obsess on one thing, and I think it's actually helped me in a lot of ways because my focus has been very extreme and intense on solving one issue. And I love problem solving. So I'll go in and visually problem solve something. Now, if you're not able to hold your attention, and there's a physical or mental block that you have as a person, as a human being, that does not let you do the job, then you have to solve that problem first, okay? That's just my practical advice, because in the workplace, you will be competing with other people that don't have that problem. So how do you compete? You're going to have to figure out a way to be productive and excel at something, even though you have this affliction. And everybody has something, okay? That's the other thing to think about. I've got my problems, and you don't want them, by the way. It's like OCD and this and that, and I could get scatterbrained and whatever. But those are the Sergio issues, and you're going to have your things that you need to overcome. So everybody has something, right? And nobody has this easy way to it. It might seem like it, but everybody really has, the people that are working at the high level and doing this kind of stuff have really put in their time and paid their dues in order to get there. So just my practical advice here, and because I don't know the ins and outs of what your situation or what another person's affliction might be, I've worked with people who are physically handicapped, but they certainly weren't handicapped at the job. They were able to do the job despite whatever physical handicap they had. And so it was irrelevant to the actual job, you see? That's the one, I think, it kind of levels the playing field in the sense that it's skill-based. So you have to be able to execute to do whatever particular discipline is. And, hopefully there is, okay, let me give you another practical piece of advice. One of the things that I do find helpful is that you find support for this kind of stuff, and you don't do it alone, okay? Because it's a team sport that we're doing here. So you're gonna you need help, you need support, you need to find your tribe and people that are gonna help push you forward. That's one of the reasons why we have the Storyboard Art platform, so that we find like-minded people doing this stuff, and then we can help each other and be supportive, because it's not easy, and nobody feels your pain like other artists who are also going through the same things. So I hope that maybe points you a little bit more in the right direction.
That was extremely helpful. Thank you. Especially the comments of people being handicapped, but not handicapped at the job.
Yeah.
And, being able to do everything, but not all at the same time. Those were extremely helpful advice.
Great.
I'm not sure how quick my question was since I wanted to ask if you could elaborate more on learning about the business side of things.
I think that's a great question. How about we this might be a good one to end on, and I'll try and make it brief. So the things that I did not understand about the business stuff coming in there, because I just had no idea and nobody ever told it to me, was how to navigate the negotiation part of becoming an artist. So people in the like business side, like eventually working, I met other people in different disciplines. So like if you're an accountant, if you're I don't know, if you're like HR or something like that, you're more used to these like interviews and just contract details and pricing. So knowing how to set your rate, what to charge, how to charge, like, and never really understood that until somebody pointed it out to me. How could I possibly know? And really no teacher like sat down, because there was no class that's like, hey, business skills, here's what you should learn, right? So you got to learn about how to put together a resume, how to put together a cover letter, what should be in it, how to apply to certain companies, what your portfolio should look like, and for all the different disciplines. So if it's much different if you're applying as an animator as you would as a storyboard artist. You'd probably put a reel together as an animator. You'd have different animated samples. Storyboard artist, you'd have different sequence samples, and you might have a animatic reel instead of a animation reel, right? So there's different ways to format this stuff, and then you got to go to the interview process. Like, how do you handle yourself? How you should dress up. I have a funny story. I went to my first interview at WildBrain, and what I thought I should be doing, and I guess it wasn't that bad. But I wore a tie. I was like super dressed up, and so because like my dad or whatever in his day, it was like, oh yeah, you got to go to business like wearing business attire. And anyway, the first thing was like, because it's a laid back kind of environment, so they're like, okay, thanks for coming, whatever, but next time don't bring that tie. They kind of said it as a joke, but you should know whether it's like casual business attire, and then if you don't know, ask. So if you're gonna get an interview, there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, HR person, can you tell me, is your office environment casual or is it formal, right? And if you're going to go to like a hedge fund or something like that, I'm sure those guys wear a suit and everybody's super formal. But at Pixar or Lucasfilm, nobody wears a tie. Nobody wears a suit, very rarely, right? So then you dress nice, right? Just appropriate, but you dress pro, but like you don't have to go fancy, right? So there's like little details there. Okay, let me go. So I'm getting too much in the weeds. How about the bigger stuff? Know how to price yourself. Know what rates you are. Now, it's so much easier nowadays to find that. Go on glassdoor.com. You can see different rates. You can ask people in the industry. You can go on the union sites to see what kind of rates you should be charging based on the type of work you're going to be doing, but also know that's global. So if you're not going to be working in the United States, you may not be able to charge, union rates and things like that. So there's that kind of stuff that you should learn about. There's books and things that you can pick up that will learn that stuff. Also, negotiation is a science, right? So a lot of times they give you a contract, they give you an offer, and it's like, oh wow, you're so impressed that somebody actually wanted to hire you. But the best position to be in is if you have multiple offers. Then you can negotiate and actually figure out which one is going to offer you the best deal. And there's ways to do that. There's kind of hardball type things, and there's like more diplomatic ways of doing it. Lawyers is another thing to learn about. Like when it comes to contracts, when do you engage with a lawyer? How much does the lawyer cost? Stuff like that. You might want to make a list of questions and ask some people. Like if you're at a big school, go to the law department and be like, hey, lawyer friend, how do you do that? Or soon to be lawyer friend, right? What do you think about this? What are you guys learning that I should know about, right? Be curious about these things. Nowadays, you can actually just do a web search and figure out a lot, which is really beneficial. In terms of higher level stuff, it becomes like job strategy of like where the industry is going, where you can place the most value, where you can be the most productive, and you should be able to navigate the trends. So I've learned now to feel out, like I can kind of feel it when a company is gonna like go under or change gears, or like when things are going to get cut. You just know it's happening because of the signs that are going on the inside. So when a department is about to be shifted, like they don't tell you up front because they want to be diplomatic and make it easy for everybody. They don't want to like scare anybody, but sometimes it happens. I know a story at Pixar. They were ramping up on a film, and they brought on all these contractors that had to relocate and stuff. And like, I don't know, a month later, they made another big executive decision that they weren't going to hit the deadlines, and they had to lay everybody off. So they were good about it. They gave everybody like a severance, and they helped relocate everybody else into other. So everybody kind of landed on their feet. But that kind of stuff happens, and how do you navigate that? Like I always tell people, have a savings set out so that you can navigate your rainy day. And like if you get cut, or if you have to bounce because you don't like the job, you do so with confidence. Like the worst position to be in is that you're so dependent on the gig that you're doing that you don't have the flexibility to move unless another opportunity comes up. So you're pigeonholing yourself into that kind of thing without covering your bases, so to speak. So those are just some things to think about, which is the business side of art that I wish some people have told me, and I just learned by the school of hard knocks in a lot of ways as I was working.
But I have one more question from a student, if you have time to answer it.
Yeah.
Do you know of, or have you heard of opportunities for blind or visually impaired people in the industry?
Let me ask this question, like what would a blind or visually impaired person want to be doing in the visual storytelling industry? Like that. So if you want to be an editor and you're blind, that's kind of hard. If you want to be a musician and you're blind, that might be easier, right? So I think you're going to, just by the nature of the limitation that you have, you're going to exclude yourself from the visual portion of the work environment, right? So I think it kind of goes back to what we said before, like what skills do you have that could apply to the workplace? And the other thing to keep in mind, there's a place for everybody, right? There's producers, there's directors, supervisors, office staff, assistants, like there's everything. There's a whole structure in there that people, we all need help there. It's like this human resource is still very valuable. So if you're visually impaired, I wouldn't recommend you go into storyboarding because you have to use your visual skills to be able to develop the work. And anything else visual probably would be excluded there. I think the real question is like, what are you good at, and how do you think that could apply to the entertainment industry? And then go for it 100%. And yeah, you might, and let us know how that goes so you can help other people and later on in the journey.